Have you ever really stopped to think about what connects us to nature? We're about to dive into a really fascinating idea, that this connection might not be about where we are, but about who we are. And the answer might be a lot closer than you think.
Right? We all have this image in our heads that a real connection with nature means you gotta be out there, hiking through a forest, camping under the stars, totally immersed in the wilderness. But what if that's only part of the equation? What if the real key is actually something inside of us? Something about our mindset, our feelings, the very stuff that makes up our character? Now, this isn't just some philosophical musing. We're going to break down a pretty incredible study from 2020 that looked at exactly this, the specific psychological traits that seem to wire us for a stronger bond with the environment.
Okay, so what problem were these researchers even trying to solve? Well, it all kicks off with a pretty fundamental challenge in how we usually approach environmental education.
For the longest time, the main game plan for environmental education has been simple: get people outside. But let's be real, that's not always an option. If you're a student swamped with a demanding major, or one of the millions of people living in a dense city, getting that direct dose of nature is tough. So what do you do then?
And this is where the study gets really clever. Instead of looking outward for the solution, the researchers decided to look inward. And to do that, they honed in on two really important psychological ideas.
First, you've got something called nature-relatedness, or NR. This isn't just about thinking nature is nice to look at. It's a much deeper thing. It's about how much you see nature as a core part of your own identity.
And second, there are character strengths, or CS. And this part is key. These are not your fixed personality traits, like being an introvert or an extrovert. We're talking about positive qualities, like creativity or curiosity, that you can actually work on and develop over time. They're like muscles.
So, to put their idea to the test, the researchers went out and surveyed almost 1,000 university students. They measured both their level of nature-relatedness and their personal mix of 24 different character strengths. And this is where the results start to get really eye-opening.
The data was pretty clear. What they found was that different groups of character strengths are strong predictors of a person's nature-relatedness. You can see how all the groups have some kind of link, but some of those links, like the one coming from intellectual strengths, are way more powerful than others.
And yeah, one of those groups really stood out from the pack. The study found that what they call intellectual strengths had the strongest connection by far. These are basically the strengths that have to do with learning and using new knowledge.
But the researchers didn't stop there. Knowing that a whole group of strengths was connected is one thing, but they wanted to know, could they pinpoint the specific individual strengths that mattered the most?
So the question became, okay, out of these 24 different strengths, which are the real heavy hitters? Which ones really separate someone with a high connection to nature from someone with a low one?
So how they do it? They use this really neat statistical tool called a decision tree analysis. The easiest way to think about it is like a flowchart that starts people. It asks questions about their character to figure out if they're high or low in nature-relatedness. And that very first question it asks, the trait right at the top of the tree, that's the single most important predictor.
And that number one strength, the single most powerful factor, turned out to be appreciation of beauty. And this isn't just about noticing a pretty flower. It's the ability to see and feel pleasure from beauty and excellence in all sorts of things. In art, in science, in everyday moments. And it just makes sense, doesn't it? This is the root of awe and wonder, those feelings that really plug us into the world.
But that wasn't the whole story. The analysis also flagged 3 other big ones: creativity, love of learning, and zest. You know, that passionate, energetic approach to life. Put those 4 together, and you've basically got the signature profile for someone who feels a deep connection to the natural world. So, what do we actually do with this information? Well, this is the most practical and I think the most exciting part of this whole study. It points to a totally new way of thinking about this stuff.
What this research suggests is a powerful new tool in our toolbox. Look, the traditional way, getting people outside, is still awesome, but we know it has its limits. This study offers another path, a complementary one. We can actively work on building these character strengths from literally anywhere: a classroom, an office, our own apartment. The focus shifts from physical access to internal development. And this is totally doable. It's not abstract. You can actually practice this stuff. You can make a conscious effort to spot something beautiful on your commute. Try a new creative hobby. Get curious and learn a new skill. And just try to tackle your day with a little more energy. These are skills you can train.
The authors of the study really summed it up perfectly. By focusing on these core character strengths, we open up brand new ways to build a connection with nature, ways that are available to everyone, no matter where they live. And that's huge, because that feeling of connection is so often what inspires people to protect the environment in the first place.
Which kind of leaves us with this one last big question to think about. If our connection to the planet really does start with our own inner character, and if that connection is what drives us to protect it, then maybe one of the best things we can do to help save the world is to just get a little better at appreciating all the beauty in it.